Welcome back. Tonight, we drift through the sleepy streets of ancient Jerusalem. So wherever you are, however your day has been, you have nothing to do now but rest. There are no twists tonight, nothing to follow, nothing you need to remember in the morning. A city of pale stone and warm dust, growing still beneath a darkening desert sky. We'll drift slowly, in no hurry to be anywhere at all. If these journeys help you rest, you're welcome to follow along, but only if you'd like to. And if you're listening now, leave the name of your city and the time where you are. Wherever you're listening from, you're in good company tonight. So let yourself settle. Let your shoulders soften, and let your eyes close whenever they're ready. Breathe in slowly, and let it go. There's no need to stay awake for any of this. Just let the streets of ancient Jerusalem come to you. The only reason a city was ever built in this dry mountain region was a single geological anomaly. It was the Gihon Spring. This reliable water source burst from a dark cave in the Kidron Valley. Without it, the hills would have remained empty. The water drew early settlers to the harsh landscape. They found life flowing from the rock. The spring gave them a reason to stay. You can imagine the sound of water echoing in the dry air. It was a quiet promise of survival. The first homes grew up around this precious flow. The water shaped the very first streets. It dictated where people could live. The spring was the true founder of the settlement. It turned a barren ridge into a home. The water still flows today. It reminds us of the city's humble start. The spring is a small, quiet miracle in the stone. The earliest known fortification was not built at the top of the hill. Instead, the massive Jebusite wall clung halfway down the eastern slope. The builders made a very specific choice. They needed to enclose and protect the vital water spring at the valley floor. The wall was made of huge, unshaped boulders. It was a towering shield of stone. The builders dragged the heavy rocks into place by hand. They knew the water was their most precious asset. A wall on the summit would leave the spring exposed. So they built lower down the steep incline. The work was dangerous and slow. The massive stones still rest there today. They show the sheer effort of those early people. The wall was a heavy blanket of protection. It kept the water safe from outsiders. The city grew behind this rough, stone embrace. The spring remained secure in the valley. The natural borders of the early town were defined by deep ravines. The steep Kidron and Hinnom valleys acted as massive defensive trenches. These deep cuts in the earth formed a natural shield. They forced all urban expansion to move strictly northward for centuries. The valleys were too steep to build on. They were too wide to easily cross. The city was locked in place by the landscape. The deep ravines kept enemies at bay. They also kept the city small and dense. You can look down into these valleys today. The shadows grow long in the late afternoon. The steep slopes still feel wild and untamed. The city had to respect these natural limits. The ravines shaped the daily lives of the people. They dictated the paths of the roads. The valleys were the silent guardians of the ridge. They held the city in a tight, rocky grip. The spiritual center of the city began as a simple agricultural workspace. Mount Moriah was the highest point of the ridge. It was originally a flat, windswept threshing floor. Farmers used the open space to separate wheat from chaff. The wind would catch the light chaff and blow it away. The heavy grain would fall back to the stone. It was a place of quiet, daily labor. The flat bedrock was perfect for this work. Later, the land was purchased to build the first temple. The threshing floor became a sacred site. The sound of wooden pitchforks was replaced by prayers. The wind still blows across the high ridge today. You can almost feel the ancient rhythm of the harvest. The transition from farm to temple was slow. The stone remembers the weight of the grain. The high ground was always a place of gathering. It just changed its purpose. King Solomon expanded the borders northward to connect the residential hill with Mount Moriah. He created a fortified royal quarter, known as the Ophel. This new area served as an administrative seam. It bridged the gap between the secular homes and the sacred precinct. The Ophel was filled with monumental stone buildings. It had grand gatehouses and wide courtyards. The expansion changed the shape of the skyline. It brought order to the growing capital. The royal quarter was a place of quiet authority. Scribes and officials walked the new stone paths. The buildings were designed to impress visitors. The seam tied the two hills together perfectly. The city was no longer just a small fortress. It was becoming a true royal center. The stones of the Ophel were cut with great care. The expansion was a bold statement of power. The city stretched its arms across the high ridge. When the northern kingdom of Israel collapsed, thousands of refugees flooded south. They arrived seeking safety in the capital. The sudden influx created a sprawling tent city outside the old limits. To protect these new arrivals, King Hezekiah hastily built the broad wall. It was a massive, thick fortification of rough limestone. The builders worked with desperate speed. The new wall swallowed up existing homes in its path. You can still see the ruins of those small houses today. They are trapped beneath the heavy stones of the wall. The engineers had no time for careful planning. They just needed a barrier against the coming threat. The wall was a blunt instrument of survival. It wrapped around the vulnerable new neighborhoods. The refugees found safety behind the thick stone. The city grew larger in a single frantic moment. The wall stands as a monument to that sudden fear. Facing an impending Assyrian siege, the engineers made a desperate gamble. They carved a winding tunnel through solid bedrock. The passage stretched for 1,700 feet beneath the city. Their goal was to redirect the spring water inside the walls. This would starve the enemy of water while saving the people. Two teams of diggers started at opposite ends. They chipped away at the hard stone with hand tools. The work was dark, cramped, and incredibly dangerous. They listened for the sound of each other's picks. Miraculously, the two teams met in the middle. The water flowed through the new channel. The city survived the long siege. You can still walk through the dark tunnel today. The cold water rushes over the uneven floor. The marks of the ancient chisels are still visible on the walls. It is a quiet echo of a very loud, desperate time. The Babylonian conquest of 586 BCE did not just defeat the capital. It completely erased it. The massive walls were dismantled stone by stone. The great temple was burned to the ground. The entire population was sent into exile. The vibrant streets were left empty and silent. The original city of David became a ruined ghost town. It sat abandoned for over 50 years. Weeds grew over the collapsed stone walls. Charred wooden beams rotted in the winter rain. The wind howled through the empty valleys. The city was nothing but a memory for those who left. The ruins slowly settled into the earth. The once great capital was reduced to a quiet pile of rubble. The destruction was absolute and total. The landscape reclaimed the broken stones. The hills returned to their wild, natural state. The city waited in the dark for a very long time. When exiles finally returned, they found their home completely broken. The settlement was incredibly vulnerable to local enemies. The new governor, Nehemiah, knew he had to rebuild the defenses. He rode out in the dead of night to inspect the ruined walls. He kept his plans a strict secret. He feared rivals would stop the work if they knew. He navigated his horse through massive piles of collapsed limestone. The valleys were dark and full of shadows. The moonlight revealed the true scale of the destruction. The gates were burned, and the stones were scattered. It was a quiet, lonely ride through the wreckage. He saw exactly what needed to be done. The secret inspection was the first step toward recovery. The rebuilding effort would require immense labor. The night ride was a moment of quiet resolve. The broken city was about to rise from the dust again. To control the rebellious population, Hellenistic rulers built the Acra. It was a massive fortress looming over the streets. The stronghold was a constant, heavy reminder of foreign rule. It cast a long shadow over the daily lives of the people. When Jewish rebels finally captured it, they took extreme measures. They spent 3 years dismantling the fortress stone by stone. They did not just destroy the building. They actually shaved down the very mountain it stood on. They wanted to ensure it could never threaten the temple again. The laborers used iron chisels and heavy wooden mallets. They flattened the hilltop completely. The work was slow, deliberate, and fueled by deep resolve. The landscape itself was permanently altered by their effort. The looming threat was erased from the sky. The flattened hill became a quiet, open space. The city breathed a little easier without the fortress above. As the region grew wealthy under the Hasmonean dynasty, the borders expanded. The population finally spilled across the Central Valley. A new, affluent neighborhood was built on the Western Hill. This area became known as the Upper City. It was filled with sprawling stone villas and open courtyards. The homes had flat rooftops that overlooked the deep valleys below. The new wealth shifted the center of gravity away from the ancient core. The original Eastern Hill became less important. The upper city was spacious and quiet. The streets were wider, and the air felt cooler. The wealthy residents enjoyed beautiful views of the surrounding landscape. The architecture was grand and refined. The expansion changed the entire feel of the capital. It was no longer just a cramped fortress on a narrow ridge. The city was stretching out and finding a new, comfortable rhythm in the sun. King Herod the Great fundamentally altered the local geography. He wanted to build a much grander temple complex. To do this, he constructed massive retaining walls around Mount Moriah. The engineers filled the gaps between the walls and the hill with rubble. This massive effort transformed a jagged peak into a vast, flat platform. It became the largest flat platform in the ancient world. The limestone blocks used for the walls were enormous. They were perfectly cut and hoisted into place with wooden cranes. The scale of the construction was truly staggering. The new platform changed the skyline forever. It created a massive, open stage for the city. The retaining walls still stand today, holding back the earth. They are a testament to incredible ancient engineering. The jagged mountain was tamed and shaped by human hands. The flat expanse is a quiet marvel of stone and ambition. The signature glowing white architecture is the result of local geology. Builders quarried a specific type of rock called melek limestone. This stone has a very unique and helpful quality. It is soft and easy to carve when first cut from the earth. Stonemasons could easily shape the blocks in the deep, open-air quarries. But the stone changes once it is removed from the ground. It hardens significantly when exposed to the sun and air. It also turns a brilliant, blinding white. This natural process gave the buildings their famous gleam. The quarries were busy, dusty places filled with the sound of chisels. The workers cut neat rectangular blocks directly from the bedrock. The soft stone made the massive building projects possible. The sun did the rest of the work. The bright white walls reflected the harsh daylight. The city seemed to glow from within the stone itself. The population swelled massively during seasonal festivals. The local springs could not provide enough water for everyone. Engineers had to construct a complex system of aqueducts. They built a stone channel to carry water from the pools of Solomon. These pools were located near Bethlehem, many miles away. The lower aqueduct relied on gravity alone to move the water. It wound along the edge of dry, rocky desert hillsides. The channel covered over 13 miles of carefully graded terrain. The slope had to be perfectly calculated to keep the water flowing. The clear water moved gently through the narrow, stone-lined path. It was a quiet, steady lifeline for the crowded streets. The engineering was precise and elegant. The water arrived just when the people needed it most. The long journey of the water ended in the deep cisterns. The aqueduct was a silent river in the dry desert. The construction of the massive Antonia fortress was a calculated move. Herod built it at the northwest corner of the Temple Mount. The fortress was designed to be imposing and intimidating. It had 4 tall towers that cast long, dark shadows. The structure loomed over the vast open stone courtyard below. The goal was to keep a watchful eye on the massive crowds. The temple courts were often filled with thousands of people. The fortress allowed soldiers to monitor the area easily. It was a heavy stone reminder of royal power. The guards could see everything from their high vantage point. The fortress was a quiet threat, hanging over the sacred space. It changed the atmosphere of the grand platform. The feeling of being watched was always present. The tall towers broke the open line of the sky. The stone walls were thick, cold and unyielding. The monumental Siloam Pool was built for more than just water storage. It was designed as a grand, stepped gathering place. The pool was nestled quietly in the lower valley. It was surrounded by wide, tiered stone steps on multiple sides. Thousands of pilgrims would gather here during the major festivals. They used the clear water to simultaneously purify themselves. It was a necessary ritual before beginning the long ascent to the temple. The pool was a place of quiet preparation and reflection. The water reflected the bright sky above. The wide steps provided plenty of room for the massive crowds. The atmosphere was calm, despite the large numbers of people. The pool was a brief moment of rest before the steep climb. The stone steps were worn smooth by countless bare feet. The water was a cool blessing in the heat of the day. The central valley, once deeply divided the eastern and western hills. It was known as the Tyropeon, or the Valley of the Cheesemakers. The ravine was so deep, it required massive stone bridges to cross. The bustling urban gap was lined with ancient shops and homes. Over centuries of destruction and rebuilding, the landscape changed. The deep valley was slowly filled with the rubble of fallen buildings. Each new layer of the city buried the old one deeper. The massive bridges were eventually swallowed by the rising ground level. The deep ravine was permanently flattened out. Today, you can hardly tell a valley ever existed there. The rubble erased the dramatic dip in the earth. The two hills were slowly stitched together by debris. The ancient shops are now buried far below the modern streets. The city smoothed out its own rough edges over time. King Agrippa I wanted to protect the sprawling northern suburbs. He began building a massive fortification known as the Third Wall. The new barrier was meant to enclose the growing neighborhoods. The stone blocks were huge and rough-hewn, but the king deliberately left the Great Wall unfinished. He feared that completing such a massive defense would look like a rebellion. He did not want to provoke the paranoia of the Roman Emperor Claudius. So the work simply stopped. The unfinished wall abruptly ended in an empty field. Large stone blocks were left scattered on the ground. The builders walked away, leaving their tools behind. The suburbs remained exposed and vulnerable. The half-built wall was a monument to political caution. It was a quiet admission of weakness. The scattered stones sat in the grass for years. They were a silent reminder of a project that was too dangerous to finish. During the Great Siege, the Roman legions took extreme measures. They constructed a massive circumvallation wall around the entire area. This temporary stone barricade was 4.5 miles long. It was built by thousands of soldiers in just 3 days. The speed of the construction was terrifying. The wall completely enclosed the surrounding hills. It was designed to isolate the ancient capital from the outside world. No one could get in, and no one could get out. The rough stone wall wound through the rugged, arid landscape. It was a tight noose pulled around the desperate population. The Roman engineers were ruthlessly efficient. The temporary wall sealed the fate of the people inside. The distant silhouette of the towers stood against the sunset sky. The barricade was a quiet, deadly ring of stone. The outside world was suddenly very far away. After the absolute destruction, the landscape was completely transformed. The Roman 10th Legion Fretensis needed a place to stay. They set up their permanent military camp directly on the ruins. They chose the high ground of the western hill. The soldiers used the broken rubble of Jewish palaces to build their new home. They constructed rigid, grid-like stone barracks and bathhouses. The red-tiled roof stood out against the pale limestone. The camp was built right over the shattered foundations of older villas. The military order replaced the organic curves of the old streets. The soldiers walked over the buried memories of the defeated. The camp was a stark symbol of total victory. The quiet routines of military life replaced the bustling local culture. The ruins were repurposed without a second thought. The new buildings were heavy and practical. The past was simply paved over and ignored. The destruction by the Romans was absolute and devastating. But 60 years later, Jewish rebels briefly recaptured the area. This was during the fierce Bar Kokhba revolt. The rebels wanted to erase the Roman presence completely. They needed their own currency to prove their independence. They did not have time or resources to mine new metal. So they minted their new coins in a very defiant way. They stamped their own symbols directly over defaced Roman currency. They used heavy dyes to crush the profile of the Roman emperor. They replaced it with the image of a Jewish lyre. The rough bronze coins were a quiet, powerful statement. You can still see the faint Roman faces beneath the new stamps. The coins were small acts of massive rebellion. They were carried in pockets and traded in secret. The stamped metal held the desperate hope of a brief, doomed freedom. Emperor Hadrian decided to erase the local identity completely. He wanted to wipe the memory of the old capital from the map. He plowed over the remaining ruins to start fresh. He founded a brand new pagan Roman colony on the site. He named the new settlement Aelia Capitolina. A Roman official guided a wooden plow, pulled by oxen, across the rubble. This ritual marked the official boundaries of the new colony. The plow cut through crushed white stone and ancient memories. Hadrian also issued a harsh new decree. He banned all Jews from entering the area on pain of death. The old name was forbidden. The streets were redrawn. The past was officially cancelled by imperial order. The quiet fields of ruins were replaced by Roman temples. The erasure was systematic and cold. The new colony was designed to make everyone forget what used to be there. the Romans laid out a brand new main street for their colony. It was called the Cardo Maximus. This wide, colonnaded boulevard sliced straight through the ancient ruins. It ignored the old paths and created a new axis. The street was paved with massive, diagonal stone slabs. Tall stone columns lined the shaded walkways on either side. The Cardo permanently shifted the commercial center of gravity. It became the bustling heart of the new Roman layout. The wide avenue brought a sense of imperial order to the hills. The old, winding alleys were replaced by straight, logical lines. The shadows of the columns moved slowly across the paving stones. The new street was designed for grand processions and busy markets. It completely redefined how people moved through the space. The layout of the old city today is still defined by this Roman road. The ancient grid survived the centuries. The new Roman walls changed the shape of the settlement entirely. The original city of David was left outside these new boundaries. Because of this, the entire footprint shifted to the north. The ancient, original core was completely abandoned. The place where the spring first drew settlers was forgotten. Over the centuries, the old ruins were slowly buried. The steep hillside was covered under layers of agricultural terraces. Farmers planted olive trees and wild grass over the ancient stones. The original streets disappeared beneath the quiet soil. The faint outlines of walls were barely visible in the morning light. The birthplace of the capital became a peaceful terraced farm. The people living inside the new walls forgot where they came from. The old stones slept under the roots of the trees. The shift in the walls erased the beginning of the story. The hillside rested in silence. The conversion of the Roman Empire to Christianity caused a massive urban pivot. The spiritual center moved westward away from the old ruins. A grand new building, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, was constructed. This became the new focal point for pilgrims and worshippers. Meanwhile, the ancient Temple Mount was deliberately ignored. It was left as a desolate, empty garbage dump. The Byzantine rulers wanted to fulfill a prophecy of total destruction. They allowed weeds and broken columns to cover the vast stone platform. The empty space was a powerful, quiet statement of a new era. The grand Byzantine church rose in the distance, full of light. The old platform sat in the shadows, covered in scattered debris. The shift in focus changed the entire flow of the streets. The old sacred ground was left to the wind and the birds. The new faith built its own center. At the very peak of Mount Moriah sits an exposed outcropping of raw bedrock. It is known as the pierced stone. This rough surface is believed to be the foundation stone. It marks the exact physical floor of the ancient Holy of Holies. Long ago, the Ark of the Covenant rested right here. The stone rises slightly above the smooth floor slabs around it. It feels like the anchor of the entire city. Everything else was built around this single point. You can sense the deep age of the rock. It has sat quietly in the dark for thousands of years. The air here feels thick with memory. The natural rock contrasts sharply with the carved stones nearby. It is a quiet reminder of the mountain beneath the monuments. The city grew outward from this very spot. It is the silent heart of ancient Jerusalem. Just down the eastern slope, you find a massive curving mantle of stones. This is the stepped stone structure. It was built by the Jebusites and early Israelites. It served as a colossal retaining wall. The steep hillside needed support to hold the royal palace above. Without this wall, the buildings would have slid right down the slope. The rough-hewn stones form a towering terrace. They lock together in a tight, careful pattern. You can see the sheer effort it took to stack them. The builders had to fight gravity every step of the way. The stones have held their ground for 3,000 years. They look like a giant stone staircase climbing the hill. The sun casts long shadows across the uneven blocks in the late afternoon. It is a quiet testament to ancient engineering. The wall simply refuses to let the mountain fall. Further west, deep within the courtyard of the medieval citadel, older defenses lie hidden. These are the foundations of the first wall. This ancient Hasmonean fortification line shows how the city grew. The defensive walls were built upon each other, layer by layer. The builders used massive, rough-hewn stone blocks. They set them deep into a trench cut from the bedrock. You can look down and see the very bottom of the ancient city. The newer walls simply rest on top of the old ones. It is like reading a book made of stone. Each layer tells a story of a different era. The bottom stones are huge and heavy. They sit quietly, in the cool shade of the deep trench. The city above has changed many times. But these deep roots have never moved. They still hold the weight of the walls above them today. Deep beneath the oldest part of town lies a labyrinth of ancient water tunnels. Early explorers found a jagged vertical fissure, known as Warren's Shaft. They thought people used it to draw water in ancient times. But modern discoveries revealed a different story. Ancient engineers actually bypassed this natural anomaly. Instead, they carved a massive hidden rock-cut pool nearby. They needed a safe place to gather the spring waters. The pool is surrounded by massive, rough limestone walls. The water inside is calm and perfectly clear. It reflects the soft, warm glow of the lights. You can almost hear the gentle drip of water echoing in the dark. The air down here is cool and damp. It feels like a secret world hidden away from the sun. The ancient workers cut this huge room entirely by hand. They left behind a quiet, still sanctuary of water. Before the famous deep tunnels were dug, water flowed along the surface. It moved through the Siloam Channel. This was a partially covered aqueduct, cut right into the rock. It ran gently along the base of the hill. The water watered the lush king's gardens in the Kidron Valley. Then it flowed down to the lower pool. The trench is shallow and narrow. You can trace its path along the edge of the ancient terraces. The water moved slowly here, catching the daylight. It was a peaceful, open stream before the city hid its water underground. The channel feels very close to nature. It follows the natural curve of the valley floor. You can imagine the green plants growing thick along its edges. The sound of flowing water must have been a constant, soothing background noise. It was a simple, elegant way to give the city life. Stretching beneath the northern walls is a colossal underground space. This is Zedekiah's cave. It is a massive quarry spanning 5 full acres. The soft white limestone was cut from this dark cavern. Builders used this stone to create the city's grandest monuments. The ancient workers left behind massive pillars of raw rock. These thick columns hold up the heavy ceiling. The sheer walls still show the jagged marks of ancient chisels. You can see exactly where the last blocks were removed. The cavern echoes with a deep, hollow sound. It is completely dark, far away from the bright sun above. The air is cool, and smells of dry dust. It feels like walking through the empty shell of a mountain. The city above was literally built from the empty space down here. The quarry is a quiet, hidden twin to the busy streets outside. The signature of those ancient builders is visible on almost every block they laid. You can see it in the drafted margins of the Herodian stones. Each massive block features a smooth, recessed border. This border frames a slightly raised, flat center. It creates a beautiful textured shadow line across the massive walls. The builders carved these edges with incredible care. The stones fit together perfectly without any mortar. When the harsh sunlight hits the wall, the shadows make a crisp grid. It turns a simple retaining wall into a work of art. You can run your hand along the smooth, cold edge of the stone. The raised center feels rougher, catching the light. This design made the colossal walls look elegant and refined. It is a small detail on a massive scale. The builders wanted their work to be strong, but also beautiful to look at. Hidden deep within the western tunnel system lies the master course. It is a single massive foundation stone. This colossal block weighs over 500 tons. It is one of the heaviest objects ever moved by humans, without modern machines. The builders placed it there to stabilize the massive retaining wall. The stone is perfectly rectangular and impossibly huge. It sits quietly in the dark, narrow subterranean passage. You have to walk a long way just to pass from one end to the other. The sheer size of it is hard to grasp. It feels like a piece of the earth itself was carved into a block. The stone anchors the entire wall above it. It has not shifted an inch in 2,000 years. The air in the tunnel is still and quiet. The giant stone simply rests there, doing its heavy job in the dark. A monumental stepped street once connected the lower pools to the sacred mount. It was paved with massive, pale stone slabs. The builders arranged the stones in a very specific pattern. They placed one wide step, followed by two narrow steps. This alternating rhythm forced pilgrims to walk slowly. You could not rush up this hill. The steps made you pace yourself and walk with reverence. The street was lined with small stone storefronts on both sides. It was a busy, crowded path, but the steps kept the rhythm calm. You can still see the worn edges of the stones today. Millions of feet have smoothed the pale limestone over the years. The climb was a physical and spiritual journey. The wide steps gave people a moment to pause and breathe. The street itself guided the mood of the crowd. It turned a simple walk into a quiet ritual. Near the top of the climb, archaeologists uncovered a complex of massive public baths. These were the Ophel ritual pools, known as mikvat. They were essential infrastructure for the ancient city. The pools were designed to handle the rapid purification of tens of thousands of pilgrims. People had to wash here right before they entered the sacred gates. The large, deep pools are cut directly into the bedrock. They are lined with smooth, grey plaster to hold the water. Wide stone steps lead down into the baths. A low central wall divides the steps to separate the crowds. The design is simple, clean, and highly efficient. You can imagine the quiet splashing of water as people step down. The pools sit empty now, baking in the bright sun. But they were once the final, quiet stop before the grand courtyards. They washed the dust of the road away. Pilgrims finally entered the sacred precinct through the Hulda gates. These were dark, monumental underground staircases carved into the bedrock. The passages sloped upward through the thick stone foundation. As you walked up, you passed under elaborately carved stone domes. The ceilings were covered in intricate geometric patterns. The air in the tunnel was cool and dim. The sound of footsteps echoed loudly off the hard stone walls. Then, you would emerge suddenly into the blinding sunlight of the main courtyard. The contrast was sharp and intentional. The dark tunnel made the bright plaza feel even more vast. The carved domes above the stairs were a hidden piece of art. Only the people walking through the passage could see them. The stairs are wide and shallow, built for massive crowds. They guided the pilgrims up from the shadows and into the bright, open air of the mount. Another grand entrance is buried beneath the modern plaza. This is Barclay's Gate, a colossal Herodian doorway to the mount. Today, only the massive stone lintel is visible just above ground level. The rest of the 30-foot doorway remains hidden, deep underground. The lintel is a single monolithic block of stone. It rests heavily above the blocked entrance. You can see the smooth drafted edges of the stone peeking out from the earth. It is easy to walk right past it without noticing. But beneath the dirt lies a towering monumental gate. The sheer scale of the hidden door is staggering. It once welcomed thousands of people every day. Now, it sits quietly in the dark, filled with centuries of soil. The visible stone is just a small hint of the giant structure below. It is a quiet reminder of how much of the city is still buried. Jutting out from the high western wall is a ruined stone springing. This is Robinson's Arch. It was once a massive, monumental stone overpass. The arch carried a grand staircase high above the busy streets. It allowed priests to walk directly from the lower markets up to the complex. The arch spanned a wide paved avenue filled with stone stalls. Today, only the base of the arch remains attached to the wall. It looks like a giant stone shelf hanging in the air. You can see the curve where the massive vault once reached across the sky. The stones are huge and perfectly cut. They cast a deep shadow on the wall below. The street under the arch was once loud and full of life. Now, the broken arch stands quietly in the sun. It is a beautiful, sweeping fragment of a bridge that no longer exists. Further north, another massive stone vault supported the main bridge. This is Wilson's Arch, an arch. It connected the wealthy upper city directly to the sacred mount. The colossal arch spanned the dark, narrow valley below. It is perfectly constructed from huge, smooth blocks of limestone. The thick stone piers hold secret, hidden rooms inside them. These dark spaces were likely used for storage or security. The arch is so wide it feels like a tunnel. The stones curve gracefully overhead, locking tightly together. The bridge above carried thousands of people every day, but the rooms below were quiet and hidden from view. You can see small, dark doorways at the base of the massive piers. The air under the arch is always cool and shaded. It is a massive piece of engineering that also hides quiet secrets. The arch still stands strong, bridging the gap across the ancient valley. Along the southern edge of the mount stood the royal stoa. It was a magnificent basilica supported by 162 massive columns. This grand hall was the secular heart of the complex. It was a busy place used for banking, commerce, and legal matters. The interior was vast, with a high wooden cedar ceiling. The floor was paved with polished stone slabs. Sunlight streamed through high windows, lighting up the towering Corinthian columns. The Romans completely obliterated the building during the siege. Today, only scattered architectural fragments remain. You can find pieces of carved stone and broken column bases. They hint at the incredible scale of the lost hall. The stoa was a place of loud voices and clinking coins. Now, the southern edge is quiet and open to the sky. The grand basilica is gone, leaving only small, carved memories in the dust. Up in the wealthy upper city lies the palatial mansion. This sprawling complex reveals how much the elite cared about purity. The basement features multiple private, plaster-lined ritual baths. These mikvahs were built directly into the home. The wealthy family could purify themselves without ever leaving their house. The underground rooms are pristine and quiet. The walls are covered in smooth gray plaster. Wide steps lead down into the clear, still water. The baths sit right next to beautiful mosaic floors. The warm glow of an oil lamp would have lit the space. It feels very private and secluded down here. The water in the stepped pools is calm and reflective. The family built these baths for comfort and strict tradition. The basement is a quiet sanctuary, hidden beneath a massive home. It shows a life of quiet luxury and careful daily rituals, preserved in the stone. Just a short walk away is the burnt house. This is the ruined basement of a wealthy priestly family's mansion. It was preserved exactly as it fell in the year 70. The room was buried under a thick layer of grey ash. Collapsed wooden roof beams lie charred on the floor. Shattered stone vessels are scattered across the mosaic tiles. The destruction was sudden and complete. The fire burned so hot it baked the earth. The room has sat in the dark for nearly 2,000 years. You can still see the black soot on the stone walls. The broken cups and bowls show a normal day interrupted forever. The air here feels heavy and very still. It is a quiet, frozen moment of loss. The ash preserved the final hours of the house perfectly. The ruined basement tells a sad, silent story of the city's fall. Down in the valley beneath Robinson's Arch lies a perfectly preserved street. It is a wide avenue paved with large pale stone slabs. but the street is violently crushed and buckled. The massive paving stones are cracked and caved in. This damage was caused by the weight of colossal wall stones. Roman soldiers threw these huge blocks down from the walls above during the destruction. The heavy stone smashed right through the thick pavement. They still lie exactly where they fell. The street looks like a frozen earthquake. You can see the sheer force of the impact in the shattered slabs. The smooth road was destroyed in a single, violent afternoon. Now, the crushed street is quiet and bathed in sunlight. The fallen blocks rest heavily in the craters they made. It is a powerful physical scar left behind by the end of an era. Directly beneath that crushed street runs a deep, stone-lined drainage channel. It is a dark, narrow sewer with a slightly curved ceiling. During the final days of the siege, this tunnel became a refuge. Hundreds of desperate residents used it as a final hiding place. They hoped to use the drain as an escape route from the burning city. The tunnel contains shallow, stagnant water and discarded ancient pottery shards. The air down here is damp and very close. The stone walls are rough and slick with moisture. It is a tight, claustrophobic space, hidden far below the daylight. You can imagine the quiet, fearful waiting in the dark. The people left behind small cooking pots and oil lamps. The tunnel was built to carry rainwater away from the markets. Instead, it became a silent, hidden shelter beneath the chaos of the falling city above. When the Roman army finally destroyed the city, they left one giant structure standing. This was the massive Phasael Tower. The general deliberately spared it from the fires. The tower is built of colossal stones with perfectly drafted margins. It stood alone amidst a vast field of smoking, flattened ruins. The Romans left it to show future generations the incredible strength of the city they had conquered. The square stone tower is towering and solid. It looks completely immovable. The huge limestone blocks fit together with perfect precision. The tower casts a long, lonely shadow over the empty ground. It was a monument to the builders, preserved by the conquerors. The stone walls are thick enough to withstand almost anything. It stands quietly in the bright daylight, a single survivor of a massive siege. The tower is a silent witness to the city that used to surround it. Beneath the northern edge of the city lies the Struthian Pool. It is a vast, dark, underground cavern filled with still water. Herod built this massive cistern to supply the Antonia fortress. Later, the Romans covered it with heavy stone arches. They built a thick pavement right over the top of the water. The twin-vaulted ceiling reflects beautifully in the dark, glassy surface below. The cavern echoes with the smallest sound. The air is cool, and smells of wet stone. A few flickering lights cast long shadows across the massive arches. The water is deep and perfectly calm. It feels like a hidden underground lake. The heavy stone vaults press down from above, holding up the modern streets. The pool has waited quietly in the dark for centuries. It is a peaceful, hidden reserve of water, tucked away beneath the noisy northern gates of the city. Hidden deep beneath the modern northern entrance is a perfectly preserved Roman arch. This is the Eastern Pedestrian Gate, built by Emperor Hadrian. It was part of a massive, triple-arched gateway. The structure marked the northern boundary of the new Roman city. The arch is perfectly semicircular and built of large, smooth blocks. It sits deep within a subterranean stone wall. The warm glow of lights highlights the careful curve of the stones. The gate is much lower than the modern street level. You have to walk down into the quiet dark to see it. The stones are worn smooth by ancient footsteps. The archway feels solid and heavy, holding back the earth above. It is a quiet piece of Roman engineering hidden under the busy modern plaza. The gate no longer leads outside. It just stands silently in the shadows, marking a border that disappeared long ago. North of the ancient walls lies an elaborate, rock-cut mausoleum. This site is known as the Tombs of the Kings. It was actually built for a wealthy convert queen. The grand facade is carved directly into a sunken courtyard. The entrance was sealed by a massive heavy rolling stone. This huge circular door was designed to slide down a carved groove. Once it rolled into place, it locked the dark tomb forever. The stone is incredibly thick and heavy. It rests quietly in its track at the entrance. The courtyard is peaceful and open to the bright sky. The carved rock face shows faded details of ancient art. The rolling stone was a clever, simple piece of engineering. It used gravity to protect the quiet rooms inside. The heavy door still sits there today. It is a silent guardian for a tomb that has been empty for centuries. Tucked away in a quiet modern neighborhood is Jason's tomb. This is an elaborate rock-cut burial cave from the Hasmonean era. The entrance features a single stone Doric column supporting the porch. The tomb is surrounded by dry brush and old olive trees. Inside, the walls are adorned with ancient charcoal drawings of ships. These sketches hint at the worldly travels of the wealthy family resting inside. The drawings are faint but clear in the dim light. The single column gives the cave a grand, classical feel. The air inside is cool and very still. The tomb feels completely detached from the busy city around it. It is a small, personal monument carved into the limestone hillside. The ship drawings add a touch of the distant ocean to this dry, rocky place. The tomb is a quiet, hidden memory of a family that loved the sea. Down in the dry Kidron Valley stands a towering stone monument. This is Absalom's pillar. It is an ornate tomb, carved entirely out of the living bedrock. The lower half is a solid block of stone, still attached to the mountain. The builders carved the rock away to leave the square base standing alone. The conical roof was constructed from separate masonry blocks placed on top. The monument features beautiful Ionic columns carved right into the sides. It stands tall and bright in the harsh daylight. The rocky cliffside rises steeply right behind it. The pillar looks like a small, perfect temple dropped into the valley. The stone is weathered by wind and time, but the shape is still sharp. It is a quiet, lonely marker in a valley filled with ancient graves. The solid bedrock base anchors it firmly to the earth forever. The ancient city of Jerusalem rests under a deep, quiet night. High on the massive stone walls of the Temple Mount, a solitary patrol walks the perimeter. The air is cool and still. You can hear the soft crunch of leather sandals on stone. This is the officer of the mount, making his nightly rounds. He carries a flickering torch that casts long, warm shadows against the limestone blocks. His job is to keep watch while the city sleeps. The rules of the night are strict and clear. If he finds a guard sleeping on duty, the penalty is swift. He has the authority to strike the sleeping man with his stick. He can even set the guard's clothes on fire as a harsh warning. But on most nights the walk is peaceful. The torchlight moves slowly along the high walls. The city below breathes in a slow, steady rhythm, waiting for dawn. Deep inside the temple complex, a different kind of quiet fills the chamber of the hearth. This massive domed hall offers a warm refuge from the chilly night air. A large central fire burns constantly on the stone floor. The flames cast a soft orange glow across the wide room. Built into the thick walls are rows of tiered stone benches. Here the priests gather to rest before their daily duties begin. They sleep lightly on the hard stone, wrapped in their woven cloaks. The crackle of the fire is the only sound in the vast space. The warmth spreads slowly through the room, keeping the cold at bay. These men are waiting for the first light of morning. Their work requires them to be ready before the rest of the world wakes. For now, they simply rest in the dim light. The fire provides a steady, comforting presence in the dark hours. In the darkest hour before morning, the priests wake for a quiet ritual. They gather to choose who will perform the first task of the new day. The choice is made by a simple lottery. The chosen man steps out into the cool, silent courtyard. He walks over to a large bronze wash basin. Here he carefully washes his hands and feet in the cold water. Then, he slowly climbs the ramp to the massive main altar. The embers from yesterday's fires still glow, with a faint, red heat. He takes a small metal pan, and gently scoops up a single pile of ashes. He carries the pan down, and places it softly on the stone floor. It is a humble, quiet act. There is no audience, and no grand music. It is just one man, working in the shadows. This small gesture officially wakes the sacred space for the day ahead. As the sky begins to lighten, the city prepares for the morning offering. This daily ritual is known as the Tamid, but it cannot begin until the sun reaches a very specific height. A priest climbs to the highest pinnacle of the temple roof. He stands alone on the white stone, looking out toward the eastern horizon. The world below him is still wrapped in gray shadows. He watches the sky turn from deep purple to a soft, pale blue. He is looking for a specific sign in the distance. He waits until the morning light is bright enough to reveal the distant town of Hebron. Only then does he call out to the courtyard below. His voice breaks the morning silence, signaling that the day has officially begun. The morning sacrifice can now proceed. The sun finally crests the hills, washing the pale limestone walls in a warm golden light. With the sun now rising, it is time to open the main sanctuary. The entrance is guarded by the Nicanor gates. These doors are not made of wood, but of solid Corinthian bronze. They are incredibly thick and heavy, gleaming in the early light. Opening them is a massive physical task that requires perfect teamwork. 20 strong men gather at the base of the great doors. They plant their feet firmly on the smooth stone floor. On a shared signal, they push together with all their might. The heavy metal groans as it slowly begins to move. The hinges let out a deep, resonant sound that echoes across the wide courtyards. Inch by inch, the massive bronze panels swing inward. The effort takes time and deep, coordinated breaths. Finally, the doors stand wide open to greet the morning sun. The sanctuary is now ready to receive the people of the city. Just outside those heavy bronze doors lies a wide, curved staircase. 15 semicircular stone steps lead up to the open gate. This space serves as a natural stage for the temple musicians. As the morning progresses, a choir of Levites takes their place on the stairs. They stand together in simple white robes. Their job is to mark the transition between the different public courts. They sing the 15 ancient songs of ascent, one for each step. Their voices blend into a rich, unified harmony that fills the open air. They are accompanied by the gentle strumming of wooden lyres and harps. Now and then, the bright chime of brass cymbals cuts through the singing. The music creates a calm, steady rhythm for the crowds moving through the gates. It is a sound that locals know by heart. The melodies drift over the walls, settling softly into the streets below. Inside the sanctuary, a very different sensory experience defines the space. Twice a day, a priest burns a special incense on a small golden altar. This mixture is called the Kitaret. It is a highly guarded secret, blending exactly 11 specific spices and resins. When placed on glowing red coals, it produces a thick, fragrant white smoke. The scent is rich, earthy, and incredibly potent. It smells of sweet sap, sharp tree bark, and deep floral notes. The smoke rises to the cedar ceiling and drifts out into the city air. The fragrance is so strong that it travels for miles on the wind. Ancient texts claim the smell could reach all the way to Jericho, 15 miles away. They say the goats in the distant valley would sneeze from the drifting spice. Whether true or not, the scent is the invisible signature of the city. It lingers on clothes and stone. As the long day fades into twilight, the focus shifts back indoors. A priest steps quietly into the dim sanctuary to tend the great menorah. This massive 7-branched lampstand is made of solid, beaten gold. It stands tall in the shadows, waiting for the night. The priest works with slow, practiced hands. He carefully cleans out each of the small golden cups. He removes the old charred wicks and sets fresh ones in their place. Then he pours in clear, pure olive oil from a clay jar. His most important task is to ensure the westernmost lamp never goes out. This single flame must burn continuously through the dark hours. He lights the fresh wicks, and a warm yellow glow spreads across the stone walls. The light catches the gold, making the whole room feel warm and alive. The city outside may sleep, but this quiet fire keeps a constant watch. The rhythm of the week brings its own special tasks. Every Friday, a group of priests gathers to bake the showbread. They mix fine flour and water to create 12 massive loaves of unleavened bread. The dough is shaped into intricate, box-like forms before baking. The process requires great care and precise timing. On the Sabbath, these fresh loaves are carried into the sanctuary. They are arranged in 2 tall stacks on a small, ornate golden table. The bread replaces the loaves from the previous week. According to local belief, a small miracle happens on this golden table. The bread is said to stay perfectly fresh and warm for 7 whole days. When the old loaves are finally removed, they are shared among the workers. The taste is a quiet reward for their steady service. The baking of the bread marks the steady, comforting passage of time in the ancient city. As Friday afternoon deepens, the mood in the streets begins to shift. The work week is coming to a close. High above the lower town, a priest steps out onto a stone parapet. He stands at the southwestern corner of the Great Mount, looking down at the busy markets. In his hands he holds a long silver trumpet. He raises the metal horn to his lips and blows a loud, clear blast. The sound cuts through the noise of carts, tools, and shouting merchants. This is the official signal that the Sabbath is approaching. Down in the narrow streets, workers hear the call and stop their labor. Blacksmiths put down their hammers. Weavers step away from their looms. Shopkeepers begin to pack away their goods and close their wooden shutters. A wave of quiet slowly washes over the neighborhoods. The city takes a collective breath, preparing for a day of total rest. When the Sabbath morning arrives, the grand altars are left to the priests. The common people find their rhythm in smaller, quieter spaces. Across the city, neighborhoods gather in early synagogues. These are not grand temples, but simple, unadorned stone halls. Wooden benches line the plain walls. The light filters in softly through small, high windows. The people come here not for sacrifice but for study and community. They sit together in the cool shade to hear the ancient texts read aloud. A reader unrolls a heavy parchment scroll and speaks the Hebrew words. Then, another man translates the verses into everyday Aramaic. This ensures that everyone in the room can understand the stories and laws. It is a calm, thoughtful way to spend the morning. Neighbors sit shoulder to shoulder, listening and reflecting. The quiet hum of voices in these stone rooms forms the true heartbeat of the local culture. Up on the western hill, the wealthy upper city enjoys a different kind of quiet. Here, the streets are wider, and the stone villas catch the fresh breezes. Inside these airy homes, skilled scribes sit at their meticulous work. They sit cross-legged on woven floor mats, surrounded by bright mosaic tiles. Their job is to copy sacred scrolls and legal texts by hand. They use simple reed pens, carved to a precise point. Their ink is a dark, permanent mixture made from soot and crushed gallnuts. The work is incredibly slow and demands total focus. A single mistake means the entire parchment must be set aside. The only sound is the soft scratch of the reed moving across the rough animal skin. It is a solitary, peaceful rhythm. Through their careful, silent labor, these men preserve the laws and stories of their people. The ink dries slowly in the warm afternoon air. When the intense heat of the summer afternoon finally breaks, the city looks upward. The daily rhythm shifts from the dusty streets to the open sky. Families in the wealthy neighborhoods climb the stairs to their flat, plastered rooftops. These elevated spaces become outdoor living rooms in the evening. Low wooden tables are set with clay jugs of water, fresh bread and fruit. Woven mats are unrolled across the warm plaster. Up here, they can catch the cool, gentle breeze that blows in from the distant Mediterranean Sea. The noise of the lower town is muffled by the height. People sit quietly, eating their evening meals as the sky turns a deep, bruised purple. The rooftops offer a rare moment of privacy and peace. You can see the silhouettes of neighbors on nearby roofs, sharing the same quiet hour. The city slowly cools down, settling into the comfort of the coming night. Down near the northern sheep gate, water provides a different kind of relief. Here lies a sprawling complex known as the Pools of Bethesda. It features twin deep stone reservoirs filled with dark, still water. The pools are surrounded by 5 elegant colonnaded porticos. These covered walkways offer deep shade from the glaring sun. It is a quiet, somber gathering place. People who are sick, blind or injured come here seeking a cure. They sit patiently on the stone steps, watching the surface of the water. Local tradition says that healing comes to whoever enters the pool when the water stirs. So they wait in the cool shadows, hoping for a ripple. The atmosphere is hushed and full of quiet longing. The stone pillars reflect perfectly in the calm water. It is a place of rest and waiting, tucked away from the busy markets and the noise of the main streets. Not all the sounds of the city are peaceful. Mourning a lost loved one is a loud, highly public affair. Grief is not meant to be hidden behind closed doors. When a death occurs, a somber procession moves slowly down the narrow, winding streets. Even the poorest families follow strict customs for these moments. They are expected to hire at least 2 professional flute players. They must also hire at least 1 professional wailing woman. These musicians play sharp, mournful notes on wooden flutes. The wailing woman cries out in a loud, rhythmic lament. Her voice echoes off the close stone walls, announcing the family's loss to the whole neighborhood. People step aside to let the procession pass, bowing their heads in respect. The noise ensures that the dead are honored with appropriate dignity. It is a raw, communal expression of sorrow that weaves through the daily life of the lower town. The passage of time here is not tracked by a printed calendar. Instead, the start of a new month depends on human eyes. People watch the night sky, waiting to spot the very first, faint sliver of the new moon. When witnesses see it, they rush to report their sighting to the High Court. Once the judges verify the claim, the new month is officially declared. A man blows a curved ram's horn, sending a sharp blast into the night. Then, a chain of signals begins. A large bonfire is lit on the rocky summit of the Mount of Olives. the bright flames leap into the dark sky. Watchers on distant hills see the fire and light their own beacons. The message travels from peak to peak, spreading across the land. It is a beautiful, practical system. The glowing fires connect the sleeping city to the wider world in the quiet dark. As the year turns to autumn, the rhythm of the surrounding valleys changes. The Kidron Valley fills with the steady work of the olive harvest. Just outside the walls lies a grove called Gethsemane, which literally means oil press. Here, the air smells of crushed leaves and rich green fruit. Workers pour baskets of fresh olives into massive circular stone basins. A heavy stone wheel is set inside the basin, attached to a long wooden beam. A patient donkey walks in slow circles, turning the great wheel. The stone crushes the olives into a thick, dark paste. This slow, grinding work produces the pure, clear oil needed for the city. It is the same oil that fuels the golden lamps in the sanctuary. The creak of the wooden beams and the crunch of the stone wheel echo through the trees. It is a heavy, earthy task that keeps the city's lights burning. In the peak heat of midsummer, another vital resource must be gathered. The city celebrates a special festival dedicated entirely to firewood. The massive altar fires require a constant, massive supply of fuel. Families are assigned specific days to bring their contributions to the courtyards. They carry large, neatly tied bundles of dry branches across the sunlit stones. The wood must be perfect. It is usually cut from fig, walnut, or pine trees. Every single branch is carefully inspected to ensure it is completely free of worms or rot. The work is hot and dusty, but it is done with a sense of pride. People in simple tunics wipe the sweat from their faces as they stack the wood. The piles grow higher and higher against the white limestone walls. This communal effort guarantees that the sacred fires will never go out. The smell of dry pine bark fills the warm summer air. 3 times a year, the quiet routines of the city are completely transformed. During the major pilgrimage festivals, the local population of 80,000 explodes. Over 1 million people arrive from all over the known world. The city walls cannot hold them all. The rolling hills outside the gates become a vast, temporary city of cloth. Thousands of simple tents are pitched on every available patch of grass and rock. As twilight falls, the hillsides begin to glow. Small cooking fires are lit outside the tents, casting a warm, flickering light. The gentle smoke of burning wood and roasting meat drifts over the valleys. The sound of 1 million voices creates a low, constant hum that never really stops. It is a peaceful, sprawling camp of strangers who have become neighbors for a week. The permanent stone city looks out over a sea of canvas, completely surrounded by life and light. During the early summer festival of Shavuot, the streets take on an agricultural rhythm. This is the time of the Bikurim, the offering of the first fruits. The narrow roads of the lower town fill with farmers bringing their best crops. They carry baskets overflowing with fresh, sweet figs, plump grapes, and bright red pomegranates. The wealthy citizens display their fruits in ornate baskets made of solid silver and gold. The poorer farmers carry simple, beautiful baskets woven from flexible willow branches. The contrast in containers does not matter. The fresh, vibrant fruit is the real focus. The smell of ripe grapes and dusty leaves fills the crowded streets. People sing and play flutes as they walk toward the upper gates. It is a colorful, joyful parade that brings the life of the country right into the heart of the stone city. The harvest is shared and celebrated by everyone together. When autumn arrives, the festival of Sukkot brings its own unique water rituals. The most beautiful of these is the water libation ceremony. It begins in the dark, chilly hours long before dawn. A joyous crowd gathers and winds its way down the steep, stepped street. They walk all the way down to the quiet waters of the Siloam pool. A priest dips a special golden flask into the dark water, filling it to the brim. Then, the procession turns back up the wide stone stairs. Handheld torches cast a warm, flickering light on the ancient walls. The air is filled with the bright, airy sound of wooden flutes. People sing and dance on the steps, celebrating the promise of winter rains. The golden pitcher catches the torchlight as it is carried higher and higher. It is a moment of pure, communal joy, moving upward through the sleeping city toward the dawn. To celebrate this drawing of water, the city creates an incredible display of light. In the wide paved court of the women, 4 colossal golden lampstands are erected. These structures are massive, towering 75 feet into the air. Young priests in training must climb tall wooden ladders just to reach the top. They carry heavy pitchers of oil to fill the massive bowls. When the wicks are finally lit, the fires blaze with an intense, roaring heat. The light they cast is absolutely brilliant. It washes over the white limestone walls and spills out into the surrounding streets. The glow is so bright that it is said to illuminate every single courtyard in the city. People dance beneath the towering flames, their shadows stretching long and sharp across the stones. The massive oil fires turn the night into day. It is a breathtaking, fiery spectacle that warms the cool autumn air. Amidst all the festivals, one day stands apart in absolute, heavy silence. On Yom Kippur, the entire city stops. The streets are empty, and no music is played. The focus is entirely on a single, dark room, called the Holy of Holies. The high priest enters this space completely alone. He leaves behind his ornate golden garments. Instead, he wears a simple, plain tunic, made of pure white linen. The room has no windows and no lamps. He approaches the raw bedrock floor, known as the foundation stone. In his hands, he carries a golden pan of glowing red coals, and a handful of incense. The coals cast a faint, warm light on the rough stone. He pours the incense over the heat, and thick smoke fills the small room. The city waits outside, in breathless quiet. They trust this solitary man in the dark to seek forgiveness for them all. Part of this solemn day involves a very tense, visual ritual. A goat is chosen to carry the wrongs of the people away into the wilderness. A bright crimson woolen thread is tied securely to the horns of this scapegoat. As the animal is led out of the city toward the dry Judean desert, a piece of that same red thread is kept behind. It is tied to the heavy bronze handle of the main sanctuary door. The people watch this thread with deep anxiety. According to local tradition, a miracle is supposed to happen. If the city's slate is truly wiped clean, the crimson wool will miraculously turn pure white. The bright red string stands out sharply against the gleaming metal and white stone. People pass by the doors, glancing at the thread, waiting for the color to fade. It is a small, quiet symbol carrying the weight of a whole city. Perhaps the rarest and most mysterious ritual takes place outside the walls. It is the preparation of the red heifer. This event happens only a few times in a century. A perfectly red cow, without a single blemish or stray white hair, is brought to the Mount of Olives. There, on a simple stone altar, it is burned completely to ash. The fire burns hot and fast in the early morning light. Afterward, a priest carefully sweeps the white and gray ashes together. He gathers them into a clay jar, with slow, deliberate movements. These ashes will be mixed with fresh spring water. The resulting mixture is considered the ultimate purifying agent for the people. The hillside is quiet, covered in a fine layer of pale dust. The city looks on from across the valley, watching the thin plume of smoke fade. It is a strange, ancient practice that keeps the sacred spaces clean. Look closely at the eastern wall of the ancient Temple Mount. You will find a strange, vertical line running right up the stone. It is a sudden collision of two different worlds. On the left side, the blocks are rough and uneven. They bulge outward in the old Hasmonean style. But on the right side, the stones change completely. They are perfectly smooth. Each block has a precise, recessed border, carved into its edge. This is the exact spot where King Herod expanded the massive platform. His builders simply attached their new, elegant masonry directly to the older, rugged wall. They did not bother to blend the two styles together. Instead, they left a permanent seam in the bedrock. It freezes a moment of architectural transition in plain sight. You can stand there today and trace the line with your eyes. It is a quiet boundary between two eras of history. The southern end of that same massive platform required a brilliant engineering trick. The ground here dropped away steeply into a deep valley. Filling that huge gap with solid earth was too dangerous. The sheer weight of the dirt would have burst the retaining walls outward. So, the ancient builders left the space mostly empty. They constructed a vast subterranean grid of towering stone arches. These arches supported the heavy paved courtyards far above. Down below, the space remained a quiet, cavernous void. Centuries later, people would call this dark expanse Solomon's Stables. The name stuck, even though it had nothing to do with the ancient king. Today, shafts of dusty light still filter down through small grates in the ceiling. The air is cool and still. It feels like a hidden stone forest beneath the bustling city. The arches stand in patient rows, holding up the sky. Walking up to those grand courtyards required strict preparation. The reverence for the sacred precinct was absolute. City officials enforced a very specific list of banned items. You could not simply wander in from a long journey. It was legally forbidden to enter the gates, carrying a wooden walking stick. You were also not allowed to wear dusty shoes from the road. Even a common leather money purse was strictly turned away at the entrance. The goal was to separate the mundane world from the holy space. You had to leave your daily burdens behind. The dust of the street belonged outside the walls. People would leave their walking sticks resting against the outer stone steps. They would wash their feet and step barefoot onto the smooth pavement. It forced a physical shift in mindset. You could not rush through the gates. You had to slow down and arrive clean. Just past the outer courtyards stood a low stone fence, called the soreg. It was a beautifully carved balustrade that marked a hard boundary. Anyone could walk in the outer plazas, but the inner courts were restricted. To make this perfectly clear, the fence featured heavy stone tablets. These blocks were inscribed with crisp letters in both Greek and Latin. The message was not a gentle request. It bluntly warned that any foreigner who crossed the barrier would die. The text stated that the trespasser would have only themselves to blame for their ensuing death. It was a stark, chilling notice in an otherwise beautiful space. The warning was carved deep into the pale limestone. It caught the bright Mediterranean sun, making the letters impossible to miss. The fence itself was low enough to see over. You could watch the rituals inside, but you could not take another step. Inside those restricted courts, time was measured with absolute precision. The daily schedule of offerings and prayers was incredibly complex. Everything had to happen at the exact right moment. To manage this, the priests relied on a small, carefully carved limestone sundial. Excavators found this precise instrument buried near the southern wall. It is a modest, curved block of stone, marked with deep, ancient lines. As the sun moved across the sky, a sharp shadow would creep along the grid. This simple tool kept the entire sanctuary running on track. It did not matter if the city outside was chaotic. Inside the walls, the day was divided into perfect, predictable fractions. The priests would watch the shadow touch a specific line. Then, a silver trumpet would sound across the courtyards. The sundial was a quiet anchor. It tied the rituals of the city directly to the movement of the sun. The massive square altar in the center of the courtyard was built under a strange rule. It was a towering structure, but it could not be touched by iron tools. Iron was the metal of swords, spears, and war. The altar was meant to be a place of peace and reconciliation. So, the builders had to use a completely different method. They constructed the massive ramp and platform using only naturally smooth stones. If a rock needed to be shaped, they could only chip away at it using another stone. It was a slow, painstaking process. The finished altar was rough and unhewn, lacking the sharp edges of the surrounding architecture. It stood in stark contrast to the perfectly drafted masonry of the walls. The fire burned constantly on top of these natural, untouched rocks. It was a quiet reminder that some things should not be forced into shape. Hanging over the main entrance to the sanctuary itself was a breathtaking piece of art. It was a massive, intricate sculpture of a grapevine made entirely of gleaming gold. When it was first installed, the vine was relatively small. But over the years, wealthy patrons wanted to leave their mark. They would constantly donate golden leaves to the temple. Others would bring heavy clusters of golden grapes. The priests would carefully attach these new pieces to the growing sculpture. Eventually, the golden vine became absolutely massive. It grew so heavy that it required several strong priests just to lift it. The metal would catch the morning light, glowing brightly against the white stone walls. It was a living piece of art, constantly expanding with new donations. The vine draped heavily over the towering wooden doors. It was a quiet symbol of abundance, frozen forever, in pure, shining gold. Just past those golden doors hung the massive temple veils. These heavy curtains were woven in a deep, rich shade of purple, known as argaman. This specific color was incredibly expensive to produce. The dye could not be made from plants or common minerals. Instead, it was extracted drop by drop from the glands of murex sea snails. These small shells were harvested by the thousands along the Mediterranean coast. It took a staggering amount of work to produce even a small vial of the dye. Because of this intense labor, the vibrant purple fabric was worth more than its weight in gold. The heavy cloth absorbed the dim light of the sanctuary. It draped softly over carved wooden beams, hiding the deepest rooms from view. The deep purple color was a quiet display of immense wealth. It was a luxury pulled directly from the bottom of the sea. The high priest who entered those hidden rooms wore a very specific blue robe. The garment was designed with a strange, built-in alarm system. The bottom hem was lined with alternating decorations. There were small, intricate golden bells spaced evenly around the edge. Between each bell was a tightly woven pomegranate made of blue and purple yarn. As the priest walked, the golden bells would chime softly against the fabric. This gentle ringing announced his presence as he moved through the dark sanctuary. The ancient texts warned that he must wear this robe so he would not die. The sound proved he was still moving, still alive, and respectfully approaching the sacred space. It is a deeply human detail hidden in a grand ritual. The most powerful figure in the city walked with a constant, delicate jingle. The soft chimes echoed quietly against the heavy stone walls. Maintaining this grand sanctuary required a massive amount of money. Every adult male in the city had to pay an annual tax. The cost was set at exactly half a silver shekel. The law surrounding this payment was incredibly strict. It mandated absolute financial equality across the entire population. The richest merchants were legally forbidden from giving more than half a shekel. The poorest laborers were not allowed to give anything less. When it came to the upkeep of the sacred space, everyone was exactly the same. You would hand over your single thick silver coin, and your duty was done. It was a rare moment of total balance in a highly divided society. The silver coins piled up in the treasury, each one representing a single person. The heavy Tyrian shekels clinked together in the collection chests. Wealth could buy many things, but it could not buy extra influence here. Outside the sacred precinct, money was handled with much more cunning. A strange legal loophole existed in the city called the Korban vow. It was a clever way for wealthy people to protect their assets. A person could legally declare their money or property dedicated to the temple. Once they spoke this vow, the funds were considered untouchable. This legally prevented them from having to use the money to support their aging parents. The trick was that they did not actually have to hand the money over right away. They could keep it for themselves while claiming it was promised away. It led to bitter arguments in the sunlit stone courtyards of the upper city. An older man might plead for help, only to be turned away by his own son. The son would simply clutch his leather coin purse and invoke the vow. It was a quiet, legal cruelty. Down in the bustling upper markets, city officials tried to maintain strict commercial fairness. They set up a specialized stone measuring table in the public square. It was a thick, rectangular block of limestone with several smooth depressions carved into the top. These carved holes were shaped like funnels, each holding an exact, standardized volume. Inspectors used this table to verify that merchants were not shortchanging their customers. If a buyer suspected they were cheated, they could bring their grain to the table. The inspector would pour the goods through the funnel to check the amount. It was a simple, physical way to enforce honesty in a crowded market. The stone table sat surrounded by woven baskets and clay jugs. It was a quiet anchor of trust amid the noise of haggling traders. The smooth stone edges were worn down by years of constant daily use. People in these markets kept meticulous track of their finances. Archaeologists recently discovered a 2,000-year-old receipt carved into a small stone slab. It is a rough fragment of flat limestone, small enough to hold in your hand. Someone scratched faint Hebrew letters and tally marks into the surface. The stone clearly lists a name, Shimon, alongside a series of numbers. Next to the numbers is the Hebrew letter Mem, which stood for money. It proves that even in antiquity, people kept permanent, careful financial records. Shimon likely sat at a dusty wooden table, tallying his debts by the warm glow of an oil lamp. He used a sharp tool to scratch the transaction into the rock. Paper and parchment were expensive, but a piece of broken limestone was free. This tiny rock survived for millennia. It is a quiet echo of a completely ordinary business deal. The wealthy merchants who ran these markets lived in stunning villas in the upper city. They decorated their homes with incredibly intricate mosaic floors. These luxurious artworks were made of thousands of tiny colorful stone tiles. However, the artists had to follow a very strict rule. They adhered closely to the biblical commandment against graven images. Because of this, the mosaics completely avoided any depictions of humans or animals. You will not find any faces, birds, or hunting scenes in these floors. Instead, the artists poured their skill into complex geometric patterns. They created repeating, interlocking circles and beautiful floral motifs. The designs are dizzying and precise, spreading across the wide rooms like woven carpets. The colorful stones catch the light from the open courtyard windows. It is a quiet, abstract beauty. The floors show immense wealth, but they remain perfectly obedient to the ancient laws. These grand estates featured comforts that most people could barely imagine. In the ruins of a royal villa from the First Temple period, excavators found a remarkable luxury. They uncovered a private, indoor toilet that is nearly 3,000 years old. It is a square block of smooth limestone, with a hole carefully carved in the center. This stone seat was positioned directly over a deep, hand-dug septic pit. In an era when most people had to use open fields outside the walls, this was an unimaginable privilege. The small stone room offered complete privacy and comfort. The limestone block was carved with a slight curve, to make it more comfortable to use. It sat quietly in the corner of the grand house, a hidden symbol of extreme status. Only the absolute elite of the ancient world could afford such a thing. It is a deeply human detail preserved in stone. While the wealthy enjoyed their indoor comforts, the city streets had their own strange rules. A bizarre civic ordinance actually banned chickens from being raised anywhere within the city limits. You would not hear roosters crowing in the morning alleys. The rabbis instituted this rule for a very specific reason. Chickens constantly scratch and dig in the loose dirt looking for bugs. The religious leaders feared that the birds might unearth impure items, like tiny bone fragments. A chicken could easily drag a piece of bone into a ritually pure area, ruining the space. So the birds were strictly kept outside the massive stone walls. You might see a few chickens scratching in the dust along the outer dirt paths. But inside the gates, the streets were entirely free of poultry. It was a strange, quiet absence in a bustling ancient metropolis. The rule kept the sacred city perfectly clean. The pursuit of absolute ritual purity extended to the plant life as well. A strict law dictated that no gardens or orchards were allowed inside the city walls. The fertilizer required to grow crops would defile the sacred ground. The streets were mostly bare stone and pale limestone architecture. However, there was one beautiful, fragrant exception to this rule. The city allowed a few ancient rose gardens to remain within the walls. These specific gardens had existed since the time of the early prophets. Because of their deep history, they were granted a special legal exemption. You could walk past a small, walled courtyard, and suddenly smell blooming, wild red roses. The bright flowers contrasted sharply with the dense, dusty stone of the surrounding houses. It was a rare burst of color in a highly regulated city. The roses grew quietly, protected by their own ancient legacy. Beneath those clean, regulated streets ran a dark and damp world. A deep drainage channel carried water and waste away from the city above. Down in this muddy sewer, archaeologists found a tiny, perfectly preserved golden bell. It is a delicate, spherical piece of jewelry with a small loop for sewing. It likely belonged to a wealthy aristocrat walking through the upper markets. The bell must have torn off the hem of their garment without them noticing. It bounced along the paving stones and slipped through a grate into the dark water below. The owner probably never knew where they lost it. The tiny bell rested in the cold mud for 2,000 years. It is a beautiful, intricate object lost in the most unpleasant place imaginable. The faint, warm light of an oil lamp reveals its pure gold surface, completely untouched by the centuries of decay around it. That same underground drainage channel hid much darker secrets. Hidden deep in a narrow crevice between two massive stone blocks, excavators found a Roman sword. It was still encased tightly inside its decaying leather scabbard. The iron blade is rusted, and the wooden handle is worn from use. This weapon was likely stripped from a dead legionary during the chaotic final days of the city. A Jewish rebel probably took the sword and fled into the sewers to hide. They wedged the weapon into the dark crack, planning to come back for it later. But the rebel never returned to retrieve their prize. The sword sat wedged in the stone, waiting in the dark for millennia. It is a quiet, violent ghost left behind in the damp tunnels. The heavy iron blade tells a story of desperate survival. It remains frozen in the exact spot where it was hidden. Deeper still beneath the bedrock lies an older, more miraculous tunnel. During the Iron Age, King Hezekiah ordered a massive water channel, carved through solid rock. The Siloam inscription, found carved into the damp limestone wall, explains how they did it. The tunnel was dug by two separate teams of workers, starting at opposite ends. They had no compasses or modern surveying tools. Yet, they managed to meet perfectly in the middle, deep underground. The inscription reveals that they guided themselves simply by listening. They could hear the sound of each other's pickaxes echoing through the solid rock. They adjusted their digging based on the faint, rhythmic striking ahead of them. The rough Hebrew letters commemorate the exact moment the two teams broke through the final wall. It is a stunning feat of ancient engineering. The dark, narrow tunnel still carries cool water today, echoing with quiet history. Hezekiah built that tunnel to prepare for a brutal siege. Above ground, the kingdom was stockpiling supplies for the coming war. Archaeologists have found thousands of clay jar handles from this exact period. Each curved handle is stamped with a royal seal containing the letters LMLK. In ancient Hebrew, this translates simply to belonging to the king. These standardized seals were used to mark massive jars of grain, oil, and wine. The crown was creating a vast emergency reserve in the capital city. The stamped seal often depicted a winged sun disk, pressed firmly into the wet clay. These jars were stacked high in dark storehouses, waiting for the enemy army to arrive. The handles are smooth and worn, shaped perfectly for a human hand. They are quiet evidence of a city bracing for disaster. The king gathered everything he could, sealing his preparations in fired clay. The officials who managed those royal supplies left their own tiny marks behind. In the oldest part of the city, excavators found a hoard of bullae. These are tiny lumps of clay used to seal official rolled documents. When a fire destroyed the archives, it baked the clay, preserving the seals forever. Miraculously, several of these tiny stamps bear the exact names of officials mentioned in the Bible. One seal clearly reads Gemariah, son of Shaphan, in ancient script. Even more incredible, the edge of the hardened clay still holds a faint human fingerprint. The official pressed his thumb into the wet mud thousands of years ago, and the ridgelines are still visible. It is a deeply personal connection to a distant past. You can see exactly where a real person held the document. The tiny lump of dark clay rests quietly in the warm sunlight. Not all ancient records were stamped in clay. Some were carved proudly into stone. The Theodotus inscription is a rectangular limestone plaque covered in neat Greek letters. It proves that a synagogue existed in the city, while the grand sanctuary was still standing. But the text reveals a surprising detail about how the building was used. It states that the synagogue was built not just for reading the law. It also served as a hostel with guest rooms and water for traveling pilgrims. People walking from distant lands needed a safe place to sleep. This simple stone building provided a quiet refuge for weary travelers. The plaque was built right into the wall near a heavy wooden door. It shows that the city was not just a place of grand rituals. It was a living, breathing destination that had to care for its tired visitors. Some visitors came to see the ancient monuments scattered in the nearby valleys. In the village of Silwan sits a strange structure known as the tomb of Pharaoh's daughter. It is a monolithic tomb carved entirely from a single massive piece of bedrock. The square stone room was hollowed out directly from the rocky cliffside. Originally it featured a striking, Egyptian-style pyramid roof that pointed sharply at the sky. But if you look at it today, the top is roughly flattened off. Centuries later, hermits moved into the valley and decided to live inside the ancient tomb. They wanted a flat roof for their daily activities, so they simply chopped the pyramid off. They destroyed a piece of ancient architecture, just to make their home more convenient. The square stone block still sits quietly on the hillside. It is a strange mix of royal ambition and practical reuse. Other caves in the surrounding hills hold much smaller, quieter secrets. During a recent excavation, archaeologists sifted through the fine, dry dust of a dark cavern. They found a single bronze coin minted by Jewish rebels during the Great Revolt. The small piece of metal is oxidized green and stamped with the image of a chalice. It was likely dropped by a desperate rebel, hiding from the advancing Roman army. The owner probably sat in the dark, listening for footsteps outside, and lost the coin in the dirt. They never came back to find it. The coin lay completely undisturbed on the rocky floor for 2 millennia. A narrow shaft of sunlight pierces the darkness, illuminating the exact spot where it fell. It is a tiny piece of defiance left behind in the shadows. The bronze chalice waits quietly, a forgotten memory of a lost war. Our walk through ancient Jerusalem is coming to an end. Wherever you've drifted to, you don't need to come back. There's nothing more to listen for tonight. Sleep well.